Let's turn our attention to some big international news where Zambian President Edgar Lungu is currently trailing behind the opposition leader Hichilema. That's in the country's polls. It remains unclear at this point, though, when exactly Zambians will know who their next president is. What we can tell you, though, is Lungu yesterday declaring the elections not free or not fair. Let's get some reaction now. I'm joined by Faith Mabera, senior researcher at the Institute for Global Dialogue. Faith, good evening to you. Thank you very much for your time. Opposition members suggesting it's not unusual. They were expecting Lungu to say that it's not free and fair. This seems to be par for the course in Zambian elections.
Good evening, Gareth, and good evening to the viewers. Yes, it's actually a very interesting outcome because what was expected to be a very tight two-horse race between Lungu and Hichilema is now shaping up to be quite the radically different outcome for the opposition candidate, who's opened a significantly wide lead in the polls. As of the latest that I've seen, I think it indicates a figure of almost 700,000 votes ahead of the incumbent, Lungu. And this is shaping up to be unexpected for the ruling party, who'd sort of given had taken on an assumption that their victory was going to be a foregone conclusion. So it's an interesting contest in that direction. But it's not surprising. It's surprising for us who observers because the trend has been in the past in terms of electoral outcomes in Africa that incumbents actually win 88% of the electoral races that they take on. So this is quite an interesting one to watch so far.
Help me understand then, what's your opinion when it comes to why the current president is losing so much ground? Has he done something wrong, or is this now a case of where we're seeing Hichilema now starting to do all the right things to gain so much traction? Which way do you think this is going? The current president getting too much wrong, or the potential new president just getting so much right?
It's a question of what was up for grabs. It's a question of what were the main hot button issues in the run-up to the polls. There's obviously the question of elections. There was also huge distrust of Lungu's government, the question of rampant corruption, and also the stagnant economy, which has been the biggest sort of pain for Zambian citizens. So it's telling, it's an indictment on just the state of things that they wanted to swing the public opinion and public and popular vote and give the opposition candidate a popular mandate in this regard. So they voted decisively. That is actually the essence of democracy, if you want to call it that in its purest form, surprising or not to the ruling party. But the question now is the latest also that I've seen is that there's now mounting pressure for Lungu to actually concede, because at this point in time, it seems as if, I think about 101 results from 101 constituencies out of the 156 has come in. And this is where I'm saying there's clearly a wide margin of, in favor of the opposition candidate. So they're trying to urge him, to urge incumbent Lungu to concede and actually agree that this is the case. But as you were saying earlier, also with the reports coming out that the Lungu and his patriotic front are playing they're taking a strategy of deeming the elections unfree and unfair, particularly in opposition strongholds. So that's a strategy, but I don't think it's going to win at this time, especially if the military stays out of it. And as we've seen, the judiciary also issued injunction against the blocking of social media. So by all accounts, it's going to be tight, and everybody's on tenterhooks, particularly because of the slow.
Faith, let me come in there very quickly. Faith, let me just ask you this last question, because you mentioned the word military on this. I've got about a minute left with you, so final question. I'm seeing a report about 2 days ago that Lungu calling in the Zambian army after political murder mayhem. There's concerns that he's going to dispute this poll outcome. We know he's going to dispute this. Just quickly, could we see the use of the military to try and back the president? Last question, last minute is yours.
I think we're yet to see. Earlier on in the run-up to the polls, there has been deployment of the troops in 3 provinces. but it's a tactic, I think, that a lot of the civil society and local election observers groups have anticipated, and they're trying to do their best to actually counter that move. Ultimately, the card lays with what the sort of state institutions do at this point in time, and whether Lungu will actually agree to concede the defeat. But at the moment, it does seem that Hichilema's lead is unassailable at this point.
Unassailable are the words. Thank you very much indeed. I'm sure we'll speak to you again. Faith Mabera, as we see the flags of Zambia flying in supporters of the current president, senior researcher at the Institute for Global Dialogue. Faith, thank you very much indeed for you in joining us. We still don't have an actual result coming out of Zambia as yet, but it looks like it might be quite the upset. We'll keep a very close eye on the situation. Any updates out of Zambia, of course, we'll bring it to you here on eNCA.